A silent emergency is brewing across America. Grocery prices are climbing, federal food aid is shrinking, and families are scrambling to survive. In West Virginia, where loyalty to Trump runs deep, many are now wondering if the cost of that loyalty is becoming too high. As Congress pushes forward with a controversial bill, millions brace for what could be a nationwide SNAP meltdown. What you're about to discover isn't just about numbers on a budget. It's about real lives, real struggles, and the political gamble that could shake America's most loyal voters. Stick with us. Number 1. Grocery store hustle. The new normal for millions like Elizabeth. Elizabeth Butler's grocery trips aren't about convenience anymore. They're about survival. In Martinsburg, West Virginia, she bounces from one supermarket to the next, hunting for the lowest price on each item. Her federal food assistance doesn't cover the month, not even clothes. With a family of 3 to feed, she is part of a growing class of Americans working harder than ever just to eat. She's not alone. Over 42 million people rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and like Elizabeth, many say the help just isn't enough anymore. As food prices surge, their dollars stretch thinner with each passing week. Eggs, milk, meat, everything costs more. The cruel irony. Elizabeth lives in a state that voted overwhelmingly for the very party now threatening to slash the aid that keeps her kitchen stocked. The hustle isn't just exhausting, it's humiliating. What used to be a routine errand has become a calculated mission to prevent hunger. And if cuts go through, millions will be forced to make impossible choices: skip meals, go into debt, or give up essentials. For Elizabeth, the math is simple. Without SNAP, her family doesn't eat. Number 2. SNAP under threat. The clock is ticking in Congress. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is on the verge of a major funding cut. Congress is racing to finalize a 1,000-page budget bill that President Trump dubbed his Big Beautiful Bill, a sweeping piece of legislation that aims to reduce government spending while promising lower prices. But for SNAP recipients, this bill spells disaster. If the Senate passes its version of the bill, the House will vote next, likely approving deep cuts to federal food assistance. Trump wants the bill signed by July 4, and he's pressuring lawmakers to move fast. In the process, he's pushing to dismantle one of the country's most widely used social safety nets, without offering a clear alternative. The proposed changes include billions in cuts and new work requirements for SNAP recipients. States would be forced to pick up the slack, a tall order for places already stretched thin like West Virginia. Local economies that depend on federal assistance would take the hit, from grocery stores to farmers' markets. Critics say the timeline is too rushed, the math doesn't add up, and the consequences haven't been thought through. For the 42 million Americans relying on SNAP, the threat feels immediate and terrifying. Their futures are being debated in closed-door meetings and late-night sessions on Capitol Hill. And for many, the outcome could mean the difference between a stocked fridge and an empty one. Before we go to the next section, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you stories that actually matter. Number 3. Trump's promise is reality. Where are the cheaper prices? During his campaign, Trump made a bold promise. Food prices would drop on day 1 of his presidency. He even staged a press event surrounded by grocery staples, claiming his leadership would bring real relief to shoppers. But the numbers tell a different story. Prices for everyday essentials like eggs, bacon, and orange juice have climbed since his pledge. The cost of living continues to rise, even as wages remain largely stagnant for low-income earners. Meanwhile, SNAP recipients like Elizabeth Butler find themselves squeezed tighter by each grocery run. Trump claims his proposed spending cuts will miraculously reduce prices, but he hasn't explained how. His administration argues that less federal spending somehow equals lower grocery costs. Economists aren't convinced. Supply chains, global inflation, and fuel prices all play a role in what ends up on your receipt. The disconnect between promise and reality is widening. For those who took Trump at his word, the disappointment is deep. When food prices rise and food assistance falls, trust erodes quickly. Elizabeth isn't buying it anymore. He promised cheaper groceries, she says, but we're spending more than ever. Across the country, shoppers are feeling the same pinch, and as the cuts loom, many are wondering how long they can keep pretending that help is on the way. Number 4. The Red State Dilemma. West Virginia stands to lose big. West Virginia gave Trump a landslide victory, driven by hopes he ease economic pain. Instead, residents like Elizabeth now face deeper hardship. Nearly 16% of West Virginians depend on SNAP to put food on the table. That's higher than the national average, and any funding cut would hit this red state hard. This isn't just a statistic, it's a brewing crisis. Rural grocery stores would lose customers. Local farmers who accept EBT payments would see less business. And struggling families would be left to fend for themselves in one of the poorest regions of the country. Why is a pro-Trump stronghold being targeted by policies that could devastate its residents? It's the paradox of party loyalty. People voted for promises of economic relief. What they're getting instead is austerity dressed up as reform. For West Virginia's lawmakers, the stakes are high. Senator Jim Justice has already warned that gutting SNAP could backfire politically. He's right to worry. Disillusionment is setting in. Families that once cheered for Trump now wonder if they were sold a bill of goods. If the cuts go through, West Virginia won't just feel the economic pain. It could also spark a political shift, one that turns red counties blue out of desperation. Number 5. Division in the ranks. Republicans face an internal SNAP showdown. The Republican Party may control Congress and the White House, but it's anything but united when it comes to SNAP. Behind closed doors, some lawmakers are growing uneasy. Cutting food aid during a time of rising prices doesn't sit well with all factions. Moderate Republicans, especially those representing poor districts, are quietly voicing dissent. They know what's at stake: lost votes, media backlash, and real suffering for constituents. Senator Jim Justice has warned colleagues that slashing SNAP could cost the party its majority in 2026. Despite the pressure from Trump to pass the bill quickly, cracks are forming. Leaked reports from private meetings reveal lawmakers wrestling with the political and moral cost of the cuts. Some want concessions, others want to delay the vote altogether. But Trump holds sway. Few in the party dare to oppose him publicly. The fear of a primary challenge or presidential rebuke is enough to silence many critics. Still, the tension is there. If Republican leaders push forward without compromise, they risk alienating both voters and members of their own base. And as public support for SNAP grows, ignoring that tension could lead to a backlash no amount of spin can fix. Number 6. Public sentiment shifts. Are Americans losing patience? Support for SNAP is rising, and the polling proves it. A recent survey found that 45% of Americans believe food assistance programs are underfunded. Only 30% think current funding levels are adequate, and just 25% say they're too high. That's a major shift in public opinion, and one Congress can't afford to ignore. With grocery prices climbing, even middle-class families are feeling the strain. People who never needed assistance before are now reconsidering. Food insecurity is creeping up the income ladder. Cutting SNAP now could trigger a public relations nightmare. News reports are already spotlighting stories like Elizabeth's, showing real Americans facing hunger. Politicians who back the cuts risk being labeled out of touch or even cruel. Republican lawmakers may hope voters forget by the next election cycle, but that's a dangerous gamble. Food is personal. When people can't afford to feed their families, they remember who was in charge. And for the millions watching Congress weigh their future, the message is clear. If lawmakers won't protect food aid now, voters may be ready to elect someone who will. Number 7. This kept my family alive. SNAP recipients speak out. For Jordan, a father of 2 in West Virginia, SNAP was never about luxury. It was about survival. The only thing that kept me and my family alive was SNAP, he says. For 3 years, the program gave his family a fighting chance. But now, that lifeline is in danger. Jordan receives about $700 a month, just enough to scrape by. His wife struggles to balance caregiving and job hunting. And with the threat of cuts looming, He's considering a second job just to keep food on the table. He isn't alone. Across the country, SNAP recipients are speaking out, many for the first time. Their stories paint a bleak picture of the daily decisions they face. Skip meals or skip rent. Buy medicine or buy milk. Their voices are often ignored in political debates, reduced to statistics or soundbites. But the stakes are painfully real. One recipient from Missouri said, "We're not lazy. We're desperate." These are the people who will bear the brunt of Congress decisions. They don't have lobbyists. They don't hold press conferences. But they're watching, and they're remembering who stood by them and who didn't. Number 8. When a $15 wage means you starve. The middle class squeeze. Cameron Whetzel works full-time, earns $15 an hour, and still can't afford groceries. He and his wife applied for SNAP, but were told they made too much. The irony? They haven't bought eggs in 4 months because they're too expensive. This is the new reality for America's working class. Earning a living wage no longer guarantees food security. Rent, gas, and grocery bills have all surged. But eligibility for aid hasn't kept pace. Whetzel is frustrated. "It feels like getting kicked while you're already down," he says. His story isn't uncommon. Millions of Americans make just enough to be disqualified from SNAP, yet not enough to meet basic needs. The system is broken, and proposed cuts would only make it worse. As the middle class shrinks, more families are falling through the cracks. They make too much for help, but not enough to survive. Whetzel's message to lawmakers is blunt. Whether you believe in small government or big government, government has to provide for somebody, somehow. If Congress ignores that reality, they risk alienating not just the poor, but the very backbone of the American workforce. And come election time, those voters may have the final word. SNAP is more than a policy. It's a promise to millions that hunger isn't acceptable in the richest country on earth. As cuts loom, that promise is cracking. The question now, will Washington listen before it's too late? Let us know in the comments, and before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's a small click for you, but it helps us keep uncovering the stories that matter.